Hello and welcome back to this episode of Civics. And in this episode, we'll be doing our last look at some Supreme Court cases that have changed American history, American government, and American politics. Um, and so we're going to look at our last two cases, and then we'll finally move on to elections, a pretty contentious issue right now, I guess, um, considering our sitting president is denying the results of an election. Anyway, so the first case that we're going to talk about today is Citizens United, and that happened in 2010. Citizens United basically was a case where a bunch of different people were fighting against or were suing to kind of strike down election regulations, basically. And then the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment allows corporations, nonprofits, these big, basically any entities that you could consider a person, could spend money on elections. And they also got rid of a lot of the limits of how much they could spend on elections. And that has really greatly changed the way our elections have worked. Now each major election has gotten even more and more money into it. I believe the one that just happened in 2020 was like, we're talking like billions and billions of dollars being funded into ad campaigns and political groups and action committees and all sorts of stuff. So there's things are happening in our political system because of this case. It's a really big, important case, and it has been for a while. There's even been a big movement to make an amendment to the Constitution to eliminate the Citizens United ruling and put election controls back in place. It hasn't gained as much traction as it probably should, but that's it. The act that it did strike down was the 2002 Campaigns Finance Act, which was a bipartisan bill that was signed into law and by President Bush, and it's not on the books anymore. The final case we're going to talk about is Obergefell versus Hodges, and that was in 2015. And this case had to do with the legality of gay marriage. Basically, this couple wanted to get married, and they were homosexual, and they were suing the county clerk, I believe, to get their marriage license. And the Supreme Court ruled that under the 14th Amendment, there's an equal protection clause which says that all laws need to be applied to everybody equally. And in that case, that means that you cannot deny a gay person a marriage certificate because of their sexual orientation. Basically, they were saying that the equal protection clause applied to sexual orientation as well as race and all the other things that it's been protecting up until that point. So that means now all the states, no matter what laws they had on the books, now had to accept gay marriage license requests, and those people could now get married. So that happened in 2015. It was a really big deal. It allowed a lot of people to fulfill lifelong dreams for themselves, and it's still there today. So that hasn't been challenged. Well, it's been challenged a bunch of times, but it hasn't been turned down yet. So that's pretty exciting. That case is still allowing those people to have the rights that they deserve. Thanks, 14th Amendment. So those were our last two Supreme Court cases. That was our last two Supreme Court cases. We're all done talking about those for right now, and we're going to move on to elections next. So we're going to talk about how they work, all the different types of elections, what kinds of things you can vote for in the United States, and all of those sorts of things. So all those kind of questions you might have about how our election system works, we'll be talking about that in our next video, or potentially two, depending on how much we end up needing to talk about it, because there's a lot of stuff that happens with elections. Regardless, thank you so much for watching Civics. See you next time.